make a start. So if you're, needing a little bit of a rest, or you'd like to hear some, hopefully, words of wisdom or some insights into how to have a more powerful mindset, please grab a seat, guys, because we're about to get started. So the session today is on mindset or mind mastery, and I suppose my question is, who here wants something that you don't yet have? Hands up. Cool. So it could be, for instance, a connected relationship, an intimate relationship. It could be a career that you're really passionate about. It could be your health or your vitality at a level that you've always wanted it to be at. It could simply be more money in the bank. It could be a new car. So is it something in that realm? Yeah, either an object, an experience, or a relationship of sorts. Awesome. Well, that's fantastic, because essentially what we're going to talk about today is change. And when I put that word up on the please have a seat, feel free, come on down. When I pop that word up, what's the experience for many of us? Who's kind of like, oh, change, exciting? And who's like, yeah, and who's like, change, like just there's a little bit of like hesitation, fear. Yeah, it really does elicit quite an extreme polarity, if you will. And I suppose what I do, and I'll share a little bit more about what I do and who I am in just a moment, but one of the things that I help people do, if you collectively look at the vast array of roles that I take, is I help people facilitate positive change. Because what I've found is that actually it is a skill to learn how to run at change with excitement, and how to step into change with grace and with confidence. So I'd like to share some of what I've learned over my many years helping people do that, if that's okay with you. So my name is Marina. It is spelt and sounds exactly the same way as Up Marina. Never understood my whole life why it gets mispronounced and misspelt. It's an actual object. If you'd like to follow me on any of the socials, that's me there. And I'll tell you in a second what I'm able to help you with. But one of the things that I have done in the last sort of 17 years is started a lot of companies. So you could call me a serial entrepreneur. But all of my businesses are in the space of well-being. And essentially what I help people get is, oopsie, that's the wrong slide, happier, healthier, and more heartful. So we have nutrition companies, we have fitness and movement companies, Pilates, yoga, Pure Health Clubs is one of the biggest and longest standing brands that I've created. What I spend most of my time doing these days is actually one-on-one coaching, holographics work, and facilitation of group work and retreats to help people master the skills to step into and actually embody long-lasting positive change. So that's what we're going to talk about today, the lessons around that. Because I want you to become a master of change. I've only got 45 minutes with you. If I could have, I would have asked for 4 hours. But I'm going to help you become a dream builder, because I think everybody is entitled to live a life of their dreams, to love every aspect of themselves and their lives. And in doing that, we need to lose our limits, love what we do, and essentially live our life as a dream, because we only have one, to the best of our knowledge, certainly at least on this timeline, in this body, and in this time frame, yes? Okay, so who would like to feel healthier, happier, and more heartful, even if you already do? Even more, yes. Okay, great, because that's what we're going to talk about today. I would firstly like to thank you, though, for coming. You could be anywhere here or anywhere else in Brisbane, but you chose to be here, and that actually means a lot to me. And equally, I chose to give you my time, and I think this exchange of time is perhaps some of the most valuable stuff we can give each other, presence. So I appreciate that. And it also tells me something about you that you may not know yet about yourself, which is that you are an action taker. Who would classify themselves, before I told you that you are one? Or who feels like, oh no, I think I'm a procrastinator and that's why I'm here, because I need this mindset stuff. Yeah, but actually I tell you something. There are lots of people who feel like they need mindset stuff, who kind of talk about it, and are not sitting down to take in this information. So you are an action taker. You figured out the time schedule, you looked at it, you showed up. Lots of people don't show up. It's an epidemic these days, bailing. I'll be there, no I won't. Yes I will, no I won't. So raise your hand if you are capable of standing on 2 feet. Okay, excellent. Pretty well everybody here, that's awesome. Aren't we lucky and blessed? So what I'd like is someone to stand up on 2 feet. Go. That lady there, first. What was your name? Maggie. Give her a round of applause, guys. Maggie, I'm going to give you what I think is perhaps one of the most valuable gifts I can give anyone. It's one of my 3-day courses. It's worth $2.5 grand. There's one on next weekend. It's called the Dream Builder Program. Congratulations, guys. Give her a hand. And I'll tell you why she deserves that. Because what I'm going to share with you today, some of it will be new and will be really fascinating about why we do the things we do. But a lot of the stuff that you could implement, you already know. We all agreed just before I asked you to stand that you could do it. Does that make sense? So much of what you could implement today, you already know. It's the action taking that's super important. So my first word of advice is to be imperfect in your action. Don't overthink things, don't overanalyze things, just act, just do. And we'll talk about all the fears associated with that and why they're so ridiculous but also so relevant. So, for the rest of you, don't despair. I do have gifts because I love giving gifts. Every single person here, and actually one of my little humans, Bayla, has got 2 clipboards. She's just going to send them through if you would like to receive 3 gifts from me, plus a 7-day pass to Pure Health Clubs. To about the value of that, just pop your details down. We're not going to flog you with lots of information. We're simply going to send you 3 different vouchers and a 7-day pass to do about 300 classes a week if you'd like it. Okay? So we'll put one on this side of the room and one on that side of the room with a pen. If you don't want to, that's fine, but if you would, we'd love to give it to you. So choices, please raise your hand if you agree with this statement. Your life today, the way it's showing up, how much money you have in the bank, the job that you have, the friends that you have, your health. It's all a result of the choices that you've made. Who agrees with that? Yeah. And isn't that powerful? And I know some of us are like, no, some things have happened to me. And I agree. Sometimes there is, trauma, loss, natural disasters, for instance. You didn't choose those. But would we agree? Absolutely. Come take a seat. Would we agree that we have power in how we respond to even those circumstances? And that is therefore our choice. Yes. And the great news about this is if you're sitting here today going, well, that kind of sucks because look at the mess I've created. The wonderful news is you have the power to change any aspect of your life, more so than you realize, with this wonderful power of choice. And what I want to ask you is imagine for a minute if you had a filter, and you can, this is what I teach people, if you had a filter for running every decision you ever made through what I call an empowered choice filter. So imagine if every choice you made around your health, your career, your relationships was an empowered choice. Who knows what an empowered choice is? Or can have a guess of what it might be? Yeah. So I would classify an empowered choice as one that is aligned with your truth, aligned with your values, supportive of your overall evolution and growth, is not done out of obligation, guilt, shame. Does that make sense? And do we often make decisions out of obligation, guilt, and shame? Yes. So we'll be talking about 5 relationships to your dream life in just 1 second, and I want you to get clear on where you are, because only from there can we make the change. So, empowered choices. I want you to take a second, close your eyes. Literally, normally I would do a full meditation with this, but we're going to take a 30-second transfer through time and space, forward through time. I want you to imagine that you took 12 months every day of making empowered choices around your health. So you made the best decision for you and your well-being every day for 365 days. You also did that around your relationships. You also spoke up and stepped out in your career, in your family unit, in your community, and fully expressed yourself in an empowered way. So I want you to move forward 365 days, and I want you to just take a snapshot of what that would look like in the future. How would you look physically? How would you experience yourself physically? And what else would be different in your life? Would your bank balance be different? Would your career be different? Would your location and lifestyle be different? Just kind of scan around and take a big photo of it. And as you do, I want you to just breathe in a major emotion that you feel when you're in this time frame. Everybody doing that now? So empowered choice after empowered choice. And remember, they get better and stronger and stronger and better. 365 days of it. And when you're ready, just come back into the now. And if we can all just have a look up here on this board. If this is us now, today, and this is you, after empowered decisions squared, right, multiplied by 1 trillion or whatever it might be, who could say that there is definitely a difference between these two? Physically, emotionally, and, in your reality. Hands up? Excellent. Okay. So, can you just yell at me a couple of the differences? 1 or 2? Slimmer, thank you, and happier, thank you. So happier is up here. Yep, and slimmer is a result. Yeah, what else? Was that healthier? Confident? Yep. I'm pretty impressed with my lip reading abilities just then. Dignity, oh, I love that, yeah. Okay, dignity. Now, I've done this a lot with a lot of people. I can tell you up here there would be ease, there would be calm, there would be confidence, yeah? All of these things. And down here there would be things like slimmer, fitter, better career, more money, more integrity around the things you say you do, etc., right? And so my point is, because I worked 17 years helping people lose weight, get healthier, which, to be honest, is the baseline, guys. If we're not taking care of ourselves physically, then your vessel is tainted, right? Your experience of life is tainted. So 100%, health and taking care of ourselves is the baseline of self-love and self-care. And from that, this is what we ultimately get. Health, confidence, dignity, joy, calmness, ease. This is worth chasing, agreed? So this journey is worth doing. So let's talk about how to do that. And particularly, why lots of us haven't yet. Why haven't we? That's what I'm curious about. So over the time that I've worked with hundreds of people, one-on-one and thousands in groups, what I've noticed is that people are in one of 5 relationships to their dream life. So I want you to have a listen and see where you are. First up, we have distracted. So the people who are distracted in relationship to their dream life, they're busy being busy. Okay? So busy being busy. They've got their head stuck in the sand with relationship to what they want. They can't see the wood for the trees. They're essentially locked down in obligation. And in fact, if you ask them, what is it that you really want? They'd be like, I don't even know what that, they wouldn't even know what that means. I don't have time for that. I got stuff to do, yeah? So just caught up in life. Often these people find themselves at the end of life and go, how come I had that career? Where were the choices? They don't even feel like they're making any, okay? And then second on from distracted, we have confused. Now confused is interesting because confused people I deal with a lot. They come to me and they say, Marina, I know this is not what I want, but I don't know what I want. I hear that a lot. I don't know what I want. I want something else, but I don't know what I want. And I can tell you this, no soul is confused, not ever. I can have everyone who's ever come into my room and said I'm confused, within 5 to 10 minutes, we have clarity on what they want. It's just being asked the right questions and having the space to allow your voice to come up. Okay? So confused though looks like this. It's like you can't quite see what you really want, but you know that it's there. And the experience is treading water. Who can relate to that? It's like, I don't know where to go. And it makes sense, right? If you don't know where the shore is, why would you start swimming? But it's this experience of frustrated, treading. I really want to go somewhere, but I don't know where I want to go. And you do need to connect a lot of dots around your identity and your values to get clarity. Now, third up, we have the doubters. So they're a level, it's not so much a level up, but the experience is they know what they want. So if you ask them, they can say, oh, I really want to change my career, or I really want to start a family, or there's a clarity around what they want. But there's a, I don't think I can get there, or I don't know how to get there. Does that make sense? So there's doubt around the how or their experience of it. Like it's like everybody else can do it. Yeah, you can do it, you can do it, but not me. I don't have the experience, knowledge, beauty, time, whatever it is, yeah? It's the I'm not enough gig. And so the experience there is chasing your tail, because what you do is you tell yourself that you're trying. Yeah? It's like, well, I tried. I lost some weight and I gained it back, and I lost some weight and I gained it back. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it's also this experience of like, oh, I keep going for the job interviews, but I don't get the job I want. But it's because we're running the same pattern over and over and over again. Can anyone relate to this? Yeah, and it's a really frustrating experience to be chasing your tail. So those who are doubting need some clarity on path. They need a big pinch of self-belief. They need to let go of some of their fears. All of us do. And then we can move into, well, hopefully not, but lots of people do, into complacency. So the complacent group is an interesting mob because they kind of look like they've got it all going on. These are the guys that look like they're killing it at life, yeah? I've certainly been complacent before in my life. And from the outside, it looks like, oh my goodness, they've got it all. Look at them killing it at this and killing it at that. So successful. But the reality is they're often scaling a ladder that's on the wrong building. We've all heard that expression before, right? They're kind of doing things to be achievement junkies and to look amazing, but there's no sense of fulfillment. And their relationship to what they really want to do is one of, oh, I'll do it later because there'll be time after I've finished being awesome at this, or, there's no time for it right now because I'm too busy. So it's an interesting relationship with time. But ultimately they end up drowning in kind of an unfulfilled existence. They're kind of hollow inside, but the trophy wall is very full. But of course, guys, the good news is we can be fulfilled. There's a component of us who are very happy doing what we do, being who we are, experiencing life day to day. And, we call that living the dream. It doesn't mean there's rainbows and unicorns and stardust every day. Life still happens, but the way we navigate it is very different. There's an element of grace to how we, come at hurdles and the experience. There's always joy, always joy. And so you might like your job, you'll have the money that you need, and that's different for everyone. You'll have a healthy relationship to work-life balance, and you will be taking care of yourself because you know that that's the baseline. And ironically, when people are living a fulfilled dream life, other people tend to say, oh, you're just born lucky, right? Easier for them. It's easier for them. So we need to give credit where it's due. So of those 5, distracted, confused, complacent, and fulfilled, and doubter, I left doubter out, who kind of feels like they know where they sit right now? Because you will change. There will be times in your life when you will change. But right now, where would you put yourself? Hands up. Do you know? Good. Turn to the person next to you and just say, up until now, I think I've been, and then tell them. Go on, own it. Real quick. Share? Excellent. Okay, so it would make sense then that it seems pretty simple that all we need to do to be living the dream is, based on what was missing before, maybe we should go on a vision, some clarity on what we want, yes? Who agrees that we need to know where we want to go? 100% you do. We also need a plan, and it needs to be workable because lots of our plans are not workable. In fact, they're set up to have us experience failure, but we'll talk about why in a minute. We also have to release the handbrake, because this is the big one that nobody does. Well, some people do, but lots of people don't. We sit down with a vision, we work out a plan, but we're never getting rid of the baggage. We're not getting rid of the limiting beliefs, we're not getting rid of, essentially the fears that are stopping us from being all that we can be. And of course, we need to be in action. We need to be taking action, moving forward, and accountable and have integrity towards our goals. But the reality is, guys, this is all wonderful. We could go and get all of this, and we're still kind of not going to be there because we all are wired, and it sounds a little bit negative, for a need for approval and acceptance from others. Who agrees with that? Yeah. We're also wired for the belief that we're not good enough. Deep down inside, even the high achievers, part of the reason they're pushing so hard is to prove that they are so worthy. And I can, relate to that. And the fear that ultimately we're unlovable or unworthy. Now, I've sat with a lot of people, and I know some of us get very uncomfortable when we talk about this stuff, but the beautiful thing about it is if we raised up above this building and looked down at every human in here, every single one of us has these fears. It's actually the thing that binds all of us. And when we accept that everyone has one, guess what? There's nothing to fear in that anymore. There's no shame in that at all. In fact, there's compassion and connection. So, we're all wired for that, so don't feel like your fears are unique. You are unique, but your fears are not, I assure you. So we do need vision, and I'll tell you the most important vision that you need, the kind that pulls you towards something. So let me explain, just if this might be helpful for some of you around particularly health, because I work with a lot of people on health, but not exclusively. A lot of us say we want to lose weight. Who's ever said that? I want to lose weight. Yeah, I want to lose 5 kilos, 10 kilos. So remember that the universe has an impeccable accounting system. You get exactly what you ask for. So what happens is you say to the universe, well, I'm really uncomfortable. I've got this spare tire here and it just feels ugh, and I just don't want it anymore. It makes me feel gross and I'm not happy and I want to not be like this. I want to lose 5 kilos. The universe goes, got it. So we start to move away from feeling uncomfortable because we start eating better and moving more. Guess what? That works. Oh my goodness. So we're moving more, we're eating better, and the spare tire starts to diminish, and then suddenly we're not in that icky, yucky phase, right? Everyone knows this? Oh, pants are a little looser, feeling pretty good. Maybe I can have a little bit of pie, we say, or a little bit of whatever it is, right? And suddenly, before we know it, because we kind of reached this safety zone, we're back here again, aren't we? And then we're doing this because guess what? We said to the universe, I want to be losing 5 kilos. So we gave you that experience and it's going to continue to give you that experience until you ask for what you actually want. Does that make sense to anybody? Yes, okay. So what you need to do instead, guys, is not focus on losing 5 kilos. You need to visualize and conceptualize and spend time investing in a vision of you that is well beyond just the loss of something. It needs to be the creation of something, a higher self version of you. This is essentially what the Dream Builder program is all about. So what I help people do specifically is create a version of you who, get this for a second, is your role model. So you don't look externally for other people to inspire you. Does that make sense? You create a concept of yourself who essentially becomes your role model. So I actually have an external name for mine. You don't have to. I call her Grace. It just happens to be a word that resonates really strong with me, and some meditations have brought it up. And I always ask myself, what would Grace do when I don't know what to do? And guess what I know? Because guess who Grace is? Me. Does that make sense? So no one can be a better version of you than you. And you have a very clear version of who you want, except you're looking externally for it. So start to create this version and then spend time on why you want it. And Not just because you won't feel uncomfortable, because that's an away from motivation. We want it towards motivation. So when I am being grace, I am open-hearted, I am connected, I am loving, I am expansive and free of fear. Does that make sense? That's why I want to be all those things. So have a really strong why, but move towards a vision of yourself. One of my business partners, Anthony, who works in a nutrition company now, and actually we're no longer kind of tied in business, but a huge inspiration for me, because he also had a very, I suppose, coloured past, you might say, and a lot of people would judge him for that. But what he did when he was going through sabotage cycle after sabotage cycles, he got clear on not necessarily repeating that, but creating a vision for himself that was well beyond what he could have conceived at the time. Now, he's one of the most integral men that I know. He meditates daily. He helps thousands of people. If you don't follow him on Instagram, you should. And this is what he was able to do physically. Physical transformation is not hard, guys, when you get committed to a new vision of yourself and a strong why. But it has to be a towards motivation, not an away from. Can we see the distinction there around vision? Yes? So spend time daydreaming. I'm big on daydreaming. Where do you want to live? What kind of life do you want to have? Don't settle. Visualize, conceptualize, give energy to that. Okay, because the future toes where the present goes. One of my favorite statements. The future goes, the present goes where the future toes. I don't even know. It's up on the board, read it. I just flew in from Japan this morning and I was worried this would happen. So I'm a little bit jet lagged. The other thing you need to remember is that your vision is going to be limited by your perception. Because we all have our own perception of the world, correct? So your values, your beliefs, your limiting frames, you've got to clear that stuff. Otherwise, and I see this a lot with our clients, and this is why it's good to have a coach or a PT, because their vision of what you can do is going to be well beyond your own. Does that make sense? Until you start busting down barriers, and then, oh my Lord, you will just be like leaping and leaping and leaping forward. Okay, you do need a plan, and it needs to be not this. Okay? Some plans are this. I have people who have financial plans. You know, I want to earn $1 million by the end of the year, so I'm going to earn $250 in the first quarter, $250 in the second quarter. You get the plan ready, and all that is really just a pie cut up in the sky. It's still just a wish. And I want to be clear. I'm talking about building dreams, which means you get a vision, but then you get actionables. What is the first step? Because the biggest thing that we all do is we set ourselves up for failure by doing one of two things. Either concertinaing everything that has to occur in towards us to the point that the wall is so high that you're like, I can't do it. This happens a lot with my business coaching clients. Marina, I still have to get the insurance, I have to do this, I have to do this. It's like, you don't have to do any of that. You just have to do this step. Does that make sense? How do we climb the kangaroo point stairs, guys? One step at a time. One step at a time. You can do one step, you can do the kangaroo point stairs. So this is true as well. And then the other thing we do is we make the gap so big that it's too terrifying to leap. Do you know what I mean? So just don't think about what has to happen out there. Think about the very first thing. What's the thing before that thing? What's the thing before that thing? And then make a plan like that, because everyone's comfortable taking tiny steps, especially in these shoes, all right? So this is Haley, one of my clients that I met many, many years ago. She's a massive, like a ball, if you will, of a self-limiting belief that was there. We did a coaching session to release it. And she had a dream of a 10-year plan to open a facility. And after doing just this one session, she transformed that into a 6 months. So from 10 years, what she really truly believed would take 10 years, took 6 months. And now she actually has an amazing business and helps a lot of women transform their bodies. Because once we learn to do that, that's the gift. We can give it to others. You do need to be in action, as we already hopefully learned today. So integrity, biggest thing. Yeah? It's like, who here could tell me 3 things that you could do to be healthier? You already know them, remember? Drink more water, number 1, right? Get up and do some movement most days of the week. Yeah? Eat less sugar, please, just do that. Unless you're going to train, in which case you need it. But have some integrity around the things that you know to do. Makes a big difference. And this is an example of Michelle, one of my clients. This is the beginning of a 10-week challenge. She weighs 73 kilos. She had been 140 kilos. So at 73 kilos, I didn't even want her to do another 10-week challenge because I felt she was already amazingly transformed. But she said to me, and I remember this and I'll remember it till the day I die, she said, Marina, I've done all those 10-week challenges. I know I've lost 67 kilos, not quite half a body weight. But she said, I want to know what would be the gift that I could give myself if I gave 100%. You know, because she said, I've always followed pretty well 80 to 90% of what everyone's told me, but I want to get the PT and I want to do the meal plan that you give me 100%. Now, in exactly 10 weeks, does everyone know that that's red is muscle and yellow is body fat, and if we have to explain blue, I'd be worried, but hopefully we're good, okay? And then this is her at the end of 10 weeks. Now what's amazing about this transformation is that she's actually lost 14 kilos of body fat. She weighs 60 kilos on the scales, but she put on 1 kilo of muscle. Anyone who understands body recomposition understands that that's a phenomenal effort to lose such huge amounts of body fat and gain muscle. Because usually when you're shaving body fat, you'll cannibalize your muscle too, because not everybody knows how to do it so well. But the thing about Michelle is she's not superhuman. She's like anybody sitting here except that she committed 100%. Does that make sense? Everyone has the ability to do that. Everyone. But she had a vision for herself. And because she'd gone from 140, this is her here, 140. This is her, oopsie, that's her at 60. I mean, they're the same person, but are they the same person? Do you guys know what I'm asking? Do you think the mindset of those two individuals is even remotely the same? No, I can tell you they're not. She was wildly enlivened and empowered in the picture on the right. Amazing woman, huge love for her. Okay. Let's move on to releasing the handbrake, because this is really what it's about today, guys. I can inspire you with lots of stories, but inspiration wears off, right? It's like bathing. You've got to do it regularly. You've got to dip your toe in. So follow me on Instagram if you like. But releasing the handbrake requires us to look at our initial programming, because this is where we're actually wired for a couple of things. And it's okay to accept them and then work around them. Ignoring them is not the option. Head in the sand, don't do that. So at the root of it all, we're still animals. Who agrees with that? Okay, so because we're animals, we have what is known as a critter brain, or organismic rights, right? So we have certain organismic needs, and these are actually at the core, if you will, of everything that you do that you don't want to do. You know when you say, I really want to do this, and then you find yourself doing that? These two are the very reason why. So if you're going to take note of anything today, take note of these. We have a need to belong, and we have a need to be right. Now, if we go back in time to the tribe, right? So back in time to when we all lived in, caves. If we didn't belong to the tribe, so if we weren't part of the community where there was a hunter and a gatherer, and there was someone who knew how to build the fire, and there was that, security of the tribe, would we have lived long if we were just like little Marina on the hill and the tribe's over there? No, probably not. I'd be dead. Likewise, back in the day, if we knew that the purple berries kept us alive, but the red berries with the, purple lines killed you, is it an important distinction to be right? Because if you're not right, what would happen? You would die. So back when these kind of needs kicked in, it was about survival, except that these still run today. Because what happens is you set up belief structures in your youth, and then they might be limiting beliefs, like I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not something enough, right? Or nobody loves me, or I'm not as valuable. And then your entire life, you look to be right about them. And if there's something in your family system, which guess what? Sometimes we hate to admit it, they are, you're actually going to cling to them because they keep you in belonging. Stepping outside of your family system or exceeding the success of your family is actually coded in you to be not okay. Which is why often we sabotage back to where we were. Is this resonating with anybody? Yeah, okay, great. So, what are we mostly right about these days, and what do we do to belong? Our beliefs, which is why you need to go digging for your beliefs. You'll be shocked at some of them. When you actually unearth, you'll be like, I do not think that, but you do. So it pays to go looking, okay? And then once we do, it's really fun. It's not scary, but I find people often don't want to dig because we think there's going to be something dark and worrisome down there. But what I think we need to think about when we think about fears and beliefs is almost like the boogie monster in the closet, right? The minute we open that closet and turn the light on, there is nothing to fear. It's the not looking that keeps the fear alive. So, the critter brain is going to put survival above your soul's yearning. And when you start to realize that, you can start to become empowered and control the direction of your life, as opposed to constantly feeling like someone else is steering the ship. Why is it that I say I want to do this? Why do I say I want to do that, and yet I'm still doing this? Okay. The sabotage cycle is fascinating. It's all wired within us. I would love to break it down for you. It's important to do that. But I want to push on to fears, because I think that's going to be really valuable for you guys today. Is that okay if I do that? Push on to fears? So fears is one of my favorite conversations. I'm just weird like that. But there are two overarching fears that we all have. Who knows what they are? Fear of success and fear of failure. Nailed it in two. So we all have a fear of failing, because then it's actually a bit of a double-edged sword. We sort of we avoid failing because we think we'll be valued as less by our tribe, but at the same time when we do fail we get to go, see, I'm right, that's why I shouldn't try. So we're being right and we're belonging in one, yay, failing is kind of good for our critter brain. And then this is an important equation, because what I want us to recognize is that actually success comes from persisting and failing. Who agrees with that equation? Take a second to drink it in. Yeah. So if we think about people like Walt Disney, you know, he had a dream to start a company about a mouse, cartoons. Do you know how many banks he went to get approval? Have a guess. 2? Yeah, well, that would be kind of a good effort to try. He did go to more than 2. How many banks? 10? 15? 25? 25 would be a good effort. If you went home to your wife and you said, babe, I've been to 25 banks, no one's giving me money, he told you that? Well, I've read it's 103, but in any case, it's a lot of being knocked back, okay? Varies, it does vary in the number. But the point is that it's the people that have failed the most that have often succeeded the most too. We need to change our relationship to failure. We need to be excited about the opportunity to come at failure and start to realize that failure is in fact feedback. Yeah? It's like driving home, and if one day you start to drive home and then the road's blocked, you don't turn off your car, start crying and say, I'm never, ever, ever going to get home, do you? You just simply go, oh, well, not this way, not today. And you turn around, you find a different way. And that's all failure, what society calls failure, is. Imagine when children start walking, if they stood up and fall on their bum, and instead of us cheering like crazy people and getting ecstatic, if we said, sit down and don't stand up until you can walk. Imagine if we did that. But somewhere around life, we sort of decide that it's not okay to have to learn. Learning is failing. Remembering, learning again, taking on, board. I just took my 2 girls to Japan. We literally got back this morning, and the first day I was like, oh Lord, they're terrible. This is going to be horrendous. And by day 3, even though I know this progress cycle, they were killing it. And it was a great reminder for me too that we need to stand up and fall down until we stand up and stay up. We need to remember this for ourselves more and more. Trying something once is not trying. That's quitting. So, the other one is fear of succeeding. And a lot of people go, no, there's nothing that I would fear about succeeding. If I had everything that I thought I wanted, life would be grand. Except that there is, or you'd have it already. So the greatest question you could ask yourself today, and you won't be able to probably answer it just in this moment now, but take a photo of that or something and ask this to yourself at some point in the future when it's a little quiet and you're going to force yourself to come up with an answer. Because, I'll just get you a sec. So the question is, if you were to achieve your goal and have what you want, what might you lose that you value now? And I'll show you why this is important. So if your goal is to lose, say, 50 kilos, or your goal is to be wildly financially successful, or whatever it is, there is something that you're afraid that you will lose from here in the journey over to here, and it's something that you value, otherwise you'd already be here, aside from some limiting beliefs, etc. And often it'd be things like your ecology. Remember that belonging we talked about before? So some people lose weight and say they were once the funny fat girl, right, in the group. And they lose all this weight, and it's now, where do I sit in that cycle? Who am I? Now I'm this really fit, kind of health-conscious person, no one wants to hang out with me. I can't tell you the number of people who don't achieve their health and wellness goals because they believe it will mean they can't have drinks with their friends. Which is not true, but it's a belief that we have. Does it make sense? So you need to look at what you're afraid of losing. Some of us, in our careers, if we want to step up and have more influence, and yet we're not doing it, we're afraid of losing our anonymity, our privacy. We're afraid of putting ourselves out there, being ridiculed, having that security. There's something you're afraid of losing, or you'd be there already. Can we acknowledge that to some degree today? Yeah? Awesome. Okay. Now, there are additional fears. Fears are just so juicy. So if I was to ask you, what is it in your life, if you got to the end of your life, so this is your death, not from, you can't say sharks or snakes, if I ask you, what is your greatest fear at the end of your life? So you get to the end, nice long life, don't worry. What would be the worst thing that could possibly happen? Thank you, got you. Anybody else got something? I'll tell you what she said. Yeah. Thank you. Regret, not fulfilling my potential. Who immediately thought being alone? Yes, thank you. And who thought, well, I don't mind if I didn't travel the world and I didn't do great things, but I just want everyone to know that I was a good person and it was worth knowing me. Who's kind of more in that category? Yeah? Who kind of feels like those three do encompass it? Not fulfilling your potential, having regrets, being alone, and maybe just being a good person and being well, loved and appreciated by those around you that you've connected with, okay? So generally there's only three fears, and this is why this is so fascinating. And what I want you to get to know is that it's double-sided. So these are a blessing and a curse, and when you understand your fear and also your best friends and your husbands and your children's, wow, it just changes the way you understand every motivation, because a lot of what we do stems from fear and not from love. So let's explore these three fears. The first one is abandonment. Okay, let me explain abandonment. Someone who has the fear of abandonment is afraid that they will be left. Pretty basic, right? But ironically, this shows up in life in two ways. Either you keep people ridiculously close, like smother them. It's like, you can't leave me ever, 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 kind of like that chick from, was it Wedding Crashers or whatever, I will find you. Yeah? And then on the flip side, it's like, the other way this can work is the people who say, oh, no, he's got funny toes, or she's got weird something. No one's ever just right because they never step into a relationship, because the worst, most unsurvivable thing to them is being left. Does that make sense? So the alone's not the thing, it's the being left. So they stay alone because the idea of being left by someone is just so unbearable. So they're either really, really close, and it's not just relationships, guys. They stay in work environments far too long. Does that make sense? Because they just can't leave. Leaving is the issue. So abandonment, if that's kind of ringing true for you, just make a note. Worthlessness. Now, people often get these two confused, but worthlessness is how I am perceived in the eyes of society, but particularly my connection, my network, or people I don't even know. And it's not that you feel like you're worth less, but the way that it plays out is if, say, you're here in society, in your ecology, you will do anything to be perceived as more. So if you need me to run across town to get you something, even though I need to go to the opposite side of town, I'll do it because I want you to feel that I'm valuable in your life. So people who run worthlessness are very well liked. They're amazing to people. They do wonderful things for people, but they can be a bit of a people pleaser. Does that make sense? Yeah? And it's not done purely out of love. In fact, they may be cursing you, but they're going to do it anyway because they don't want you to value them as less, so worth less than they are now. And the other way that this can run for someone who's really paralyzed by worthlessness is kind of like a paralysis. So it's like, I'm here in my career and I want to start my own business, or I want to go for that promotion, but I'm so afraid that if I don't make it, I would fall and land here. So I will just stay stuck, real stuck. That's a very, very common, like showing how it shows up for people who run worthlessness. And then powerlessness is for the people who kind of said not fulfilling my potential and not realizing, my potential in life. You may be running powerlessness. So people who run powerlessness aren't really overly concerned with what people think of them. They're not going to fuss about it because it's about the outcome. What's important is that it happens right, it happens well, and that we'll get there. Does that make sense? So they can be very task-orientated to the point of being rude, and they will absolutely be control freaks. How about you just let me do that? And actually, your job, I'll do it too. And actually, I'll do your job too, because now I'm in control, and the job will get done right, and everyone can just breathe. So you can give someone who runs powerlessness heaps of jobs to do. The upside is hyper-capable, right? Super capable. But they drown in it at times because they don't let anyone help them, and it's out of fear. If I'm not in control or can't have any effect, if I can't be the difference that makes the difference, that's so painful for someone who runs powerlessness. They want to be the difference that makes the difference. But not so that you'll like them, necessarily, so that the best outcome was achieved. So who's kind of gone, wow, I think I'm this, or this? Who's kind of like, okay, I'm pretty clear on what I am. Hands up, just so I can see. Yeah? And who's like, I'm so confused, I don't know, I think I'm all three, and maybe every single one of them will roll into one. So the reality is, no one wants to be abandoned and worthless and powerless, right? But you will have one primary fear that is driving everything you do. Now, I'll admit, for me, particularly about 5 years ago, this was I'm still powerless, this is still my biggest fear of all the ones up there. But it was running my life about 5 years ago. And to the point where if I go to a restaurant and say we sat down and someone said, oh, I've ordered for you, someone who runs powerlessness, you would have a freak out about that. That's not okay. It'd be like, just tell them to stop cooking and bring me the menu, right? Whereas someone else is like, you ordered for me? Awesome. I don't have to make a decision. Can we see how we're all different like that, yeah? The sports I like to do don't require anyone else. Even though I have a health club that runs classes, I like community, but I can go to that class even if my friends don't turn up. Does that make sense? Whereas my best friend, she runs abandonment. Guess what sport she plays? This is where you get to think how it's just the little things. She's a rower. Who has to show up for you to row? Everyone. Yeah, the whole team has to be there. Can we see how these little things kind of affect us? Yeah, so fears are really fascinating because a lot of the things that we're doing that we think are acts of love or that we don't know why we do them, they're actually driven by fear. But there's an upside to them too. It's not all shadow, but it's good to know why you're doing it. And when you start to be aware of them, you'll actually find it funny, the ways it's running every aspect of your life. So, abandonment, worthlessness, and powerlessness. And it's a fusion now, guys. We've talked about needs. You need to belong. You need to be right. Your beliefs, honestly, they're so mixed and fused in, but core ones will be, I'm not, like hyper-stabilized ones at the very essence of every human will include things like, you know, very uplifting doozies, like I'm not good enough, I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable, but we all have them, trust me. And then fears, there's worthlessness, abandonment, and powerlessness. And your intricate fusion of that is part of why you're not having that change that you want to have. So it's like weeding. What we need to do is get clear on what beliefs are empowering and what beliefs are limiting us. Weed them out and reprogram. Likewise with our fears and our needs. Okay? The needs are always going to be there, and even your hyper-stabilized belief is always going to be there. And the reason that we get stuck here is because being stuck is safe. And this is at the core of your sabotage cycles. So sometimes, you know, when you look at your friends and you go, why are they doing that again? Same guy, different day, you know? It's like the same cycle. You can see other people's patterns clearer than you can see your own very often. But the same sabotage cycle is happening because it was survived the first time. That's it. So people who often step back into abusive relationships, or you see the same cycle, you know, people who kind of have troubles at work and then they go to a new work and it's the same troubles, you know what I mean? It's just that their system's just pressing play on the same sabotage cycle because they're still alive. So the system's going, I don't need to change that right now. Because remember, your critter brain is not concerned about your soul's yearning or your expansiveness. It's just concerned about keeping you alive. So we're not going to blame it for that. We just need to outsmart it. We need to get involved actively in choosing your beliefs, in choosing how your fears integrate into your life, and in choosing how your needs affect the reality of day-to-day living. So, how can we start to do that? Let's talk about some actionables. Where am I? Come on, technology, work with me. Okay, so first of all, our attitude. So our perspective of life is very true. Would you agree that the same situation can happen to two people and they'll have very different perspectives of it? Yes, absolutely. Okay, so sitting in gratitude, we hear this a lot, right? But what are we grateful for as opposed to what are we lacking? There is a big lack mentality at the moment. It's not helped by social media or any of these kind of things, because what's happening in addition to the lack is comparison. And you know, there's a great quote that says, comparison is the thief of joy. Who's heard that? It's a very, very true statement. And it's a sad reality that when we acknowledge the beauty or the skill of another, that we think that that needs to detract or devalue our own. Is it true that a flamingo is an amazing bird? And equally, is it true that a hummingbird is stunning? Equally amazing and magnificent in their own way, correct? So to compare them is ridiculous. Or that wonderful statement, you know, if we were to measure intellect, you know, by the ability to climb a tree, well, fish are pretty well screwed, right? So there's so many measures, but what we tend to do is compare, and that makes us feel less or lacking. So sitting in appreciation for what is and gratitude for what is. And here's a way that you can do that, because I admit, sometimes it's tough, right? Sometimes it's like, no, this is just a shitty situation we're in. Don't try and tell me it's positive. You're just annoying me. I do annoy a lot of people with my reframes. But there is something that it's always better than. So that's what I want you to write this down. When you're in a situation you're like, this is just poop, there's nothing positive, I want you to ask yourself, what is this better than? That will always help you. So for instance, if someone's like, I want to lose 10 kilos in this, 10-week challenge, and I lost 5 kilos. Oh, I'm such a loser, I'm such a failure. We get to be right about all those limiting beliefs, so part of us kind of joyous, and the rest of us feel shitty about it, yep. What's that better than? So what is losing 5 kilos instead of 10 kilos? What's that better than? Losing 4, better than losing 4, better than losing none, better than gaining weight, do you see it? And knowing now that we can do it, so what's the upside to this situation? Well, I know I can lose 5, I know how to do the process, I know that I can be motivated in that direction. So it's just turning our view a little to start to say, what is the current reality better than, and what is the upside of blessing in this experience? Because make no mistake, what you look for is what you get. What you focus on grows, and we need to be focused on the positive, because then we get more positive. Very basis of law of attraction. Okay. We also need to let go of the stories, and the stories are associated with your limiting beliefs. So at a very young age, you might have made a decision that you're not smart enough, clever enough, whatever enough. And then you go to look to be right about it. And so then, say for instance, someone comes in, they're busy, and they don't acknowledge you, and they race through, and you're like, see, they don't like me, they're such and such and such and such, and the story starts. And I tell you, we're full of stories. And once you start to see beliefs and things like this, you actually start to lose a lot of patience for stories with people. So for yourself, go, what are the facts and what's the story? The fact is, I was in the room, they walked into the room, they walked out of the room. Everything else is a story. Do we see that? So you're choosing to create the story to be right about a belief that you have. Because we need to be right about our beliefs, because then we can survive and live. So this is where we need to choose which beliefs we're going to be right about. If I was to say to you, life is, and some of you would say hard, right? And some of us would say beautiful, a gift. So is those two individuals, let's say the person who says life is hard and life is beautiful, are they having different experiences of life every day? Yes, because they're looking to be right about that belief. People's relationship to money, the way some people just have money like fall at their feet, is because their belief structure around money is so. They're being right about it. It's very simple. So if you want to be right about stuff, just pick the stuff you want to be right about. Go digging for the beliefs that you're currently being correct about that are not serving you, because there's lots of them. We all have this going on. So let go of the stories. Even the ones, when people, honestly, there's endless. So let go of the stories. The other one is to start judging less, and this is yourself and other people, because everything in life is holographic. I do a lot of work with women. I've always said I'm not a girly girl, although I've stepped much more into my feminine in my latter part of life, and I teach that now. But I've always been a girl's girl. I've loved women, and when I've done that, I've had companies that, have franchising for women, etc., etc., and people say, but how do you work with so many women? Because women are just so bitchy and competitive. And I've kind of always felt like that's never been my experience of them, ever. Does that make sense? And partly that's because I've never been competitive with women. So we get mirrored back to us that which we are. Now, it's possible that it's happening. Does that make sense? It's possible it's happening, but it's not in my reality, because you can only see that which you are. That old mythical story of the natives on the land didn't see the boats coming that invaded and took over their land because they didn't know what boats were? You can't conceive of that which you cannot conceive of. You can't see that which you cannot conceive of. So looking out, if you're feeling like the world is judging you, gee, I wish people would judge me less, start judging people less. Put out what you want to get back, number one. And start judging yourself less. We all need to just judge less. Way less. Bring the judgment down, yeah? Because this is our perspective, and it allows then a space for compassion. And when we start to realize that we all have these fears, and actually, if I had your beliefs and your fears, I'd do exactly what you're doing too. And if I'd had your experience and your life situation and people treat you the way you've had people treat you, I'd probably do exactly the same thing too. Does that make sense? Innately, all humans are beautiful and made of light. And we're just having these external, it's like every act is an act of love or a request for love. And some just come out a lot nastier than we might like them to. So if we step in that experience, we can be more compassionate, which allows us to have a much more compassionate experience of ourselves. And so here is the other thing I want you to do. It's embrace the paradox, because nothing ever is completely. With my clients, I often joke, we always say, I'm always in absolute language, listen out for it. So when you say, I'm always late, or he's never this, or she's never that, definitely let your ears prick up and then ask yourself, is that true? Write that down. Is that true? Because what we need to do is simply sit in disbelieving of the beliefs. It's one of the first ways we can start to pop it. I'm always late. Is that true? Well, I was actually on time today. Maybe by accident, but maybe once in 10 you're accidentally on time. We're never one thing all of the time. We are magnificently complex, and we're entitled to be. So don't pigeonhole yourself or other people with these titles. Yeah? So sit in disbelieving and sit in the paradox. So even when I say, you know, and sometimes it's literally just throwing in a sentence, I'll be like, such and such and such. Oh, I always do that. And then I just literally say, except when I don't. I just throw that in the end of the sentence. Oh, I'm such an overeater. I always eat heaps. I'm such a big eater, except when I'm not. Now, it sounds a bit crazy, but it's just opening the wormhole, if you will, in my subconscious that says, you're not always that. The language you use about yourself is super important, and the language you use around other people. They deserve that kind of grey area too, to enable them to have more space to become a different version of themselves. And then surrendering into self-love. Self-love is a catchphrase, you know, I teach workshops on it, but, you know, we did actually a self-love activation workshop just the other week, and it's quite a detailed concept to actually step into the experience of self-love. Talking about it is one thing, but really embodying it is another. And it is what the world needs more of, because when we love and truly accept and rejoice in our idiosyncrasies and our, you know, wonderful paradoxes, then we're free of the fear that we're not good enough, or we're not this, or we're not that. We can be joyous. Who knows the friends that you just love, they kind of pick at the things that you're most afraid of, right? But they do it so lovingly that you feel so seen. Do you know what I mean by that? It's like someone who knows all aspects of you, but loves you irrespective and almost pokes fun at the things that if someone else said it, you'd be mortified. That's true love. And what you want to do, you know, the people that you love unconditionally that way, that you would walk over hot coals for, that you want just the best for, start mirroring that back to yourself. And when you're not sure what's the right thing for you, step or disassociate and simply step in and say, okay, well, if it wasn't me, if it was, like, this is easy for me because I have children, so if I don't know what to do for myself, I'll often just put my children in my place. Well, if this was Bayla or Harlow having this experience, feeling this way, what would I say is best for them? And then the answer is easy, because it's unconditional love. So then once I do that, then I have to say, well, that is true for me too, because to another, I am another. To another, we are another. So if it is fair and right for them or anyone, then it is equally right for you. We are all deserving of abundance, love, and joy. So what level of integrity are you holding around your dreams? And you need to be honest with yourself, because the reality is, if you're saying that you want this, guys, if you're walking past, if you'd like me to send you about $1,500 worth of vouchers and also a 7-day pass to Pure Health Clubs, pop your details here. We will not spam you. We'll simply send you these vouchers and the 7-day pass to, we've got 7 health clubs, Pilates, yoga, etc. around town. Pop your details there if I didn't say that earlier. But if you don't have integrity around this, guys, it's not going to show up. And that's not because you're not, you know, capable of it. It's just because we're not acting on the integrity of that thing. So stop beating yourself up about it. If you don't really want it, then stop saying you do, because then you're just putting yourself in purgatory. And if you do want it, then back yourself a little through the strategies we've talked about today. How clear are you on your vision? Do you have a plan, and are you in action? These things are important. I know that they came before all of the talks about our limiting beliefs, but this is kind of the main one, this handbrake. And the best I suppose, metaphor I can give you is like the hot air balloon. So say we need to decide to go somewhere, right? When we have a hot air balloon trip, yeah? We need to go, okay, we're going to go to, I don't know, where would we go on a hot air balloon? Mount somewhere. Where do they go? Where? Oh, Turkey. Yeah, let's go there. Okay, I thought somewhere like in Queensland, but that sounds even better. Okay, so we decide we need to go somewhere. So we're going to start letting the gas boil up, right? Like the heat, which is kind of getting the vision really clear, getting the intention, the why really strong, right? And then you've got to get into action, and you've got to, yeah, perfect. I'm nailing my timing today. I'm super stoked. So you've got to be your own cheerleader. Okay, and then you've got to hop into the air balloon, because that's what sometimes we don't do. We have the dream, we have the vision, and we let it go off without ever hopping into it. We're too afraid to own the experience, right? So we need to hop in the air balloon. And then this is, what's the last thing you need to do, guys, before you go anywhere in a hot air balloon? Yeah, well, we did that. We let the gas get there. We got clear on our vision. We got clear on our intention. We built some real desire for it. We got clear on how we're going to get there. We hopped in. We've got to let go of the weight. Do you guys get it? And that's why I love the metaphor of the hot air balloon, because this is the thing that's kneecapping all of us, is it's the limiting beliefs and the fears beneath the surface that we're not prepared to look at. But I promise you, if you do the work in that space, if you start to get curious, what must I have to believe to still be doing this when I say I want that? Just start asking questions. The quality of our life is directly proportional to the quality of our questions that we ask. So if we start asking questions of ourselves and starting to go, why am I having this experience? When you know that you're capable and you know you want it, dig there. If you don't know how to do it yourself, go to a coach. I can help you with that stuff. It doesn't have to be me though. Read a book, get on YouTube, figure it out. But it's the handbrake or the weights that's holding you back, not your ability. I assure you, you're infinitely more capable than you realize. Infinitely more capable. In fact, guys, there are people out there with less time, less money, and less natural talent doing better than all of us because they let go of the hand weights, or the weights of the handbrakes, okay? So all of our excuses, they're just that. What's it worth to you? And more importantly, what's it costing you to stay stuck? One of the great exercises we do in the Dream Builder program is actually looking at the pain of not changing. And it's a valuable exercise because we often associate a lot of pain with change. But think about the sabotage cycles you're in and think about 5 years' time from now. If you don't address those, everything's in a spiral pattern. Guys, it's either going up or it's going down. This is true in life. Plants are either growing or they're decaying, right? We're either evolving, growing, expanding, or we're getting the opposite of that, which we don't need to look at. But my point is that if you don't look at that, that's exactly where we go. We spiral downwards, and it doesn't just stay. Nothing stays. Don't fool yourself to thinking, here is not so bad. It doesn't stay here. If you don't choose to expand it, here becomes here, here, here. The 2 kilos becomes 10 kilos, etc., etc. The stuckedness becomes absolute stuckedness. So be more afraid of the not changing than the changing. Come and do this meditation with me and I'll have you have that experience really strongly. Okay, here again is where you can connect with me post now because, I'm very clear on my purpose in life and what I can help people with, what I've spent my time and energy developing. So if you want to connect with me on Instagram, it's Marina_Pure Health, Snapchat, Marina_Pure, and on Facebook, Marina Perry. If you would like to do any future programs with me, we have lots. We have Dream Builders. I run retreats in, one's actually next week, but that's fine. We run them 3 times a year. It's a 3-day experience. And because you're all here, what I'm going to send you is a 50% off coupon, which you can use anytime anyway. I do retreats in Bali. I do retreats in Byron. They're very different. Some are about healthy living. Some are about mindset. They always all have mindset because at the end of the day, that's the key to everything. And they run again. I think a couple of them are already full, but the later ones and later in the year are available. Most importantly, do think about the cost of not fulfilling dreams. Don't be afraid of trying. Be the person who's more prepared to try and fail than never ever try. I know that's the category I'd prefer to sit in. And you guys have a choice, so choose to live your dreams, yeah? Who's keen to do that today? Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for your time and your energy today. And if you haven't yet put your details down, please do. There's also coupons up here. I'll send out those vouchers and the 7-day pass for you to get unlimited access to hundreds of classes in Pure Health Clubs. Have a beautiful day. Thank you so much.
What do I do now? Which button was it? This one. Oh, I can see that wording. Not well. Oh, yeah, you put it in. Everyone's gone. There's Mom. Where is Mommy? Oh, there's Mom. Okay.
At the back is menu cafe. Alright, they're fine. Okay. So essentially what it does is it helps you clarity on where you want to go. Mostly it's rewiring program.
Which one do you press?
So giving you strategies, but also teaching you a lot about your intuition, which I'm sure